Welcome to the show. I'm so excited you joined us today. I'm your host, Amanda Barr, and I can't wait to share the story of our shifter today. I've got Charles Reed. He's a CPA and U.S. Tax Court Practitioner, a member of the Internal Revenue Advisory Council, and founder of GetPayroll. I've got Charles. Welcome to the show.
Amanda, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, let's dive in. I want to hear more about your story and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. Well, I'm a Midwestern boy. I grew up in Davenport, Iowa. After high school, I joined the United States Marine Corps. Spent 4 years 2 years overseas, including a combat tour in Vietnam. When I came back to the States, I was stationed in Kansas City. I met my wife, who was 10 years older than I was, and had 5 kids when I married her. I just claim insanity, but it worked for us. We were married 45 years before she passed. I found out after getting out of service, shifting to the civilian economy, that my military experience was not valued by business at the time. Not that it's valued today either. So I decided to go to school. I went to the University of North Texas, got my BBA, my MBA, sat for and passed my CPA exam while I was still in graduate school. Went to work for Texas Instruments and spent the next 15 years working in the corporate world. Discovered about the time I was 40, I was never going to run a major corporation. I didn't have the political skills. I was unwilling to stab people in the back and toss them off the ladder. So I figured if I was going to run a business, I'd have to start my own like my father did. So Ruth and I started our own business in the payroll and accounting industry 30 years ago. And we've been doing it ever since. She passed about 6 years ago. It was a mobile accounting service to start with, and she worked in the office. I did the mobile work. We sold off the accounting here about 10 years ago to my partner, who still offices with me. And we kept running with just the payroll. We are a national payroll firm now. We provide payroll services to small and medium-sized businesses around the country. So, we've shifted several times in how we do things and who we do business with and how we do business. And it's been an interesting 30 years for sure.
Yeah, no, thank you for kind of sharing that and taking us down memory lane. And 30 years is a lot to try to put into a couple minutes. I can't even imagine all the shifts that has happened, and definitely incredible that you started this with your wife, and definitely heart goes out to you, and you're keeping it going. I know she's probably proud of you today to keep it moving. And I'd love to actually dive in because you did share a little snippet of when you first met her, and I want to know your first audit. You can share this story.
My first tax audit, I was still in the Marine Corps. Now I'd gotten married and had now 5 dependents, and I got them all set up through the service so they could get medical care that the service provides. And we could shop at the commissary, and Ruth could go and shop at the commissary and the PX and so on and so forth as a dependent. So when I filed the taxes the next year, instead of single, I filed married with 5 children. Well, that triggered a tax audit. Apparently, even then, people were trying to cheat the IRS. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So the old Curtiss Wright aircraft plant in Kansas City was half United States Marine Corps and half Internal Revenue Service. So the morning of my audit, I walked out of the front door of the Marine Corps Automated Service Center, down the sidewalk, and back into the other half of the building, which was the IRS. Got my appointment with the examiner, and they sat down, and the examiner said, do you know why we're auditing you? And I said, I got a pretty good idea. And I handed him the folder with all the documentation. He took the folder and he opened it up and he started going through it piece after piece, making some notes over here. Took about 10 minutes. He put everything back in the folder neatly, put it all together, handed me back the folder, and he said, son, you got bigger problems than me. And that was the end of it.
Wow. Wow. And now you represent, if I understand correctly, you went through that and obviously you were able to make it through no problem and just share your story. But you've been protecting companies for a number of years. You work with the tax compliance side. Can you share more about that? Because I don't know, Get Payroll is you're taking care of payroll, but you're actually also taking care of people on the compliance side of things.
Right. We're compliance experts. I mean,
Mhm.
uh, honestly, most payroll companies do a reasonably good job of preparing paychecks. Otherwise, they'd be out of business.
Right.
But the IRS makes millions of mistakes a year. The states do, the local taxing authorities. And there's 15,000 taxing authorities that tax
Mm.
payroll. So there's all kinds of problems. The IRS in fiscal 19 issued $13 billion of employment tax penalties. That's with a B.
Wow.
40% of all small businesses get hit with a tax penalty every year that averages about $800.
Mm.
So if you didn't get a tax penalty in 19 or 20, you're due this year. Okay. So
Goodness.
we're compliance experts. That's why I went and got my USTCP. I'm a U.S. Tax Court Practitioner, which allows me to represent clients in U.S. Tax Court without being an attorney.
Mm.
So for $60, we can file a petition with tax court and get a whole nother bite at the apple and a whole nother examination. But being on the IRS Advisory Council, I've met all the powers that be at the IRS and worked with them for the last 3 years, know them. And prior to that, I was studying code and manuals and the law. And in many cases, when we're dealing with the IRS, we know more than they do because we take things to a different level. They lack training budget. They move people around. 40% of them are eligible to retire in the next 2 years. And it's civil service, which doesn't really offer some of the incentive that private industry does.
Hmm.
If you don't get the job done today, you're not going to get fired in civil service. Okay. Now, don't misunderstand me. IRS has lots of good people. There's some bad apples, but for the most part, their fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters. They're good people like the rest of us. But they're dealing in many cases with technology that goes back to the 1960s. They don't have adequate budget. They don't have adequate people. They don't have adequate training in many cases. And it's tough. And the systems screw up and people screw up. And what do you do when you have a problem? Who do you call?
Right.
Ghostbusters? So you call me
Yeah.
because I've been doing compliance for 30 years. That's what we do. We're compliance experts. It's when you do business with us, it's kind of like buying insurance for your house. You hope the hailstorm goes the other way. But when that baseball size hail comes pounding down on your roof and into your living room, you're going to call your insurance agent and he's going to fix the house. When the IRS sends you that penalty notice, you call us and we'll take care of it. We guarantee that there won't be any problems. And when they arise like that, we fix them.
Awesome.
There's a lot of tricks that we know that you don't. One of my favorite analogies, Amanda, is when I grew up, Pele was the best soccer player in the world, Brazilian soccer player, fabulous guy, tremendous athlete. But if you take Pele and you put him in a New York Yankees uniform and you stick him at second base, he'd be lost.
Yeah.
He doesn't know the game, doesn't know the equipment, doesn't know the rules, doesn't know the players, doesn't know anything. He's still a great athlete. So a small businessman who's good at his business, dog grooming, building houses, manufacturing, making clothes, running a restaurant, whatever. He's an expert at it or he'd be out of business. He's good at it. That's his industry. When the IRS calls, he's like Pele at second base. He's still great at what he does, but man, you put him in a whole different environment. He's lost. We're not. I don't make my own clothes. I don't build my own car. I don't build my own house. Lots of times I go out to eat. I outsource things. And
Yep.
payroll is one of those things, and payroll compliance, you really ought to consider outsourcing.
Absolutely. And and you had shared with me that if you get something like that, a letter in the mail, that don't sit on it. I know sometimes it's like, oh, I got to get to that. Oh, I got to get to that. Oh, here it's again. I got to get to that. So at what point do you need to get to that?
The best time to have gotten to it was when you got it. The next best time is immediately. Okay. If you don't respond, things can happen that are irrevocable. Certain things, certain time periods, certain dates happen, at which point you lose options. So you always want to be on top of this. You want to be proactive. If you get a letter, you respond to it, preferably today or tomorrow. If you get the same letter 2 weeks later, you respond to it again. Even though it's the same letter, you respond to it again. It may be from a different department. It may be from a different service center, but you always respond to them. You do it quickly and you do it in detail. There's some standard penalties in the employment tax area: not making a deposit, not making it on time, not filing something, not filing it on time. If you didn't file it or you didn't make the deposit, make it immediately. Okay. Stop the penalties from growing. If you did make it, you should have proof you did. We do. Anytime we make a deposit for a client, we absolutely can prove when it was made, how it was made, and we have proof that it was accepted and received. So we can handle that. Same thing with reports. We either send them electronically or we send them certified mail. So we can prove what we've done and solve those things, because the IRS, with their antiquated technology, makes mistakes. It's just pure and simple. They make lots of them. So you need to follow up on everything all the time. In my newest book, I list the penalties and what you should do, how to avoid them, which is as much knowing what you should do, making sure you get deposit on time, making sure you file on time, making sure you file everything you're supposed to file. And then if you get a penalty, follow up, appeal. It's a whole series of no's, followed by a single yes. And once you get that yes from the IRS, you say, thank you very much, and get the hell out of there. Don't talk to them anymore. You're done.
Yes. And how do they get that? The payroll book.
The payroll book.
The guide. It's a guide. So yeah, how do they
for
get
small
this?
business and startups. It's available at Amazon. It's available Barnes and Nobles, other fine bookstores. It's also available at thepayrollbook.com, which is the website for the book.
Awesome.
And for your listeners, Amanda, if they will go on our site and in the discount code put podcast, for your listeners, we'll send them a free book.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charles. I know that I took a peek at the different sections of it, and it's really full of anything and everything you could possibly face in your business that has to do with payroll, from taxes to compliance to the law. You really covered everything, cross the T's, dot the I's, and I definitely suggest anybody listening to go grab it. So I'd like to dive in a little bit more. You've got payroll and you do tax compliance. Can you talk about some of the shifts you've seen, maybe even the last year, things we could be looking out for the entrepreneurs that either have employees or want to have employees? What should we be looking for in the shifts?
Well, the last year, of course, has been incredible. Changes and up to including today. I mean, it's just happening all the time. The PPP, the CARE Act, the tax deferral, the employee credit where you get, they'll pay you if you've had to lay people off for COVID and you've paid them, you can get a refund from the government for it, or employee retention credit. All these things are going on. It's very complex. You can go back to last year and get some of it in current credits. You can get credits against current taxes so you don't have to pay them, or you can take a credit and they'll send you a check at some point in the future. There's all of that, and there's delays. At one point in time, there was at least 13 million pieces of unopened mail at the IRS. I was talking to an appeals officer here a couple of weeks ago. Still at the Ogden Service Center, there were tractor trailers parked in the parking lot full of bags of unopened mail. And only in March of this year were they getting people back to start to open some of that. So it's been a disaster all the way around. We have returns from second and third quarter last year that haven't been processed. Some of them, they don't even say they've received yet, though we have the certified receipt where they received it, but they don't even have it in their website yet because they haven't opened the mail and processed it. So these things are way behind. They're issuing penalties out of the computer for where they have checks sitting in the truck waiting to be cashed.
Oh man.
It's crazy. So the shift in compliance and process has been incredible. Now, over the last 30 years, there's been a whole bunch of shifts. I was talking to somebody the other day about 10 years ago, the IRS was going to be kinder and gentler. That was an act passed by Congress. If anything, the IRS got nastier and uglier. So, and that's why I went and got my tax court practitioner's license, because the service was just getting obstreperous with things, and I needed that additional credential to be able to take care of my clients. A CPA wasn't enough anymore. So, we deal with the service all the time. In many cases, like I said, we know more than they do, but we shift. Technology's changed. I remember when fax machines came in and they used the old NCR paper. Well, faxes are almost obsolete.
Right.
Except with the IRS, you still fax things to the IRS because they don't take email.
Right.
They don't take email. You got that right. The IRS doesn't take emails.
Wow.
Talk about being behind the time. Okay. So there's all kinds of shifts as in everybody's business in how payroll's done, in technology. I personally, I finally went to VoIP for my phone system here earlier this year because when I looked at it the first time, it was terrible. Well, now it's better than the old phone line. So
things
it
are
shifts,
changing.
it changes.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to deal with and handle change effectively, or you're going to get left behind. You just can't be static anymore. You've got to be on the web. We went on the web in the mid 90s and started picking up clients around the country that way. Anybody these days, even if you only have a billboard on the web, you've got to be there or you're just not relevant. People will look at you like you're, a dinosaur in a museum if you're not on the web. You've got to shift things. You've got to change. You've got to be old Marine Corps saying adapt and overcome.
Yep. I love that. I mean, those are such powerful shifts. And I think as we're looking at the tax situation, we're looking at payroll and people and the PPP, is there anything as we're going through this year on the PPP and people are, wanting to keep their clients, but or their employees, but what are some maybe tips or tricks on how you can really manage this powerfully, especially if that's not your focus in your business. You're focusing on taking care of your clients, but you've got this happening in the background. How can you help businesses in that decisions of what is the next best step for them in regard to payroll?
You need to talk to a professional, whether it's us or someone else that understands all that and what the various options are that you have. For instance, employee retention credit. Right now, it's a big thing. And if you are having people that aren't working, but you're still paying them, the employee retention credit's a wonderful thing. Basically, they'll give you 100% of what you're paying them as a credit against your taxes. Whether you use it now or use it over time, you'll still get the credit. It carries forward. So that's a great thing. The second PPP, if you've had a substantial reduction in business from 19 to 20, there's a second PPP that's still open. And if you are in that situation, you need to be talking to a PPP lender, today, okay? Monday at the latest, whatever. You got to do it and do it now because it will run out. And when it's over, it's probably not going to be renewed. There are deadlines on these things. You just can't procrastinate. The shifts happen and you've got to take advantage of them when they happen. If you don't, you'll be left behind and left out in the cold. Last year's PPP was just free money. And if you could apply for it and get it, they didn't tax it. It was just free money from the government. We've been giving money to the government for all of our lives, and for a change, we got a chance to get some back. Anybody who didn't take advantage of it, I'm sorry, but you should have if you were able to. It's that first PPP is gone. Second one's more restrictive. I don't expect a third one,
Right.
but I do expect lots of changes. Just this morning, I was reading about the new labor secretary, who's a union guy. Okay. And he doesn't believe really in the gig economy and is working to get rid of it, make everybody employees. So's the PRO Act that is in Congress. It's basically designed to turn us back into union shop and a unionized country. And that's what the Democrats want. And that's, elections have consequences. So
Right.
the Trump Labor Department had issued new rules that were supposed to go into effect in March, and they were suspended the day they were supposed to go into effect, dealing with independent contractors versus employees. And now they're proposing a whole new set of rules, which is very much the opposite of what the Trump administration was proposing. So you got to be on top of that. If you have independent
Right.
contractors, if you're not careful, they may be employees later this year.
Mm.
And you'll have to pay them like employees and collect and remit taxes. And if you don't, the penalties and interest are substantial and can actually put people out of business. So you've got to be on top of this stuff or have somebody you deal with
Wow.
that will advise you and keep you posted. We send an email to all of our clients every week. We read, the IRS puts out 5 newsletters every week.
Ooh.
5 every week. We read them all.
Wow.
We also take the trades and keep up on this stuff because that's what we do for a living. I don't build
Absolutely.
houses. I don't remodel. I don't do clothes.
Mm.
I don't serve food in a restaurant. I don't groom dogs. I don't do all these things. I do payroll, and that's what we're on top of.
Yeah.
If I used to take fine home building just because I enjoyed it, but to keep up on the trends in home building, I can't do that. I used to be, as a CPA, I used to do investment advisory work for my clients. I was a stockbroker and a registered investment advisor, carried a 7 and a 66 license, top of the line.
Yeah.
I gave it up because
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with payroll and keep up
And
with the
that.
market.
Right.
I can't do both.
Right.
I've got an investment advisor that takes care of my money. Okay, I don't have the expertise anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I know just enough to jerk his chain at times.
No,
So
but
I had to shift from that. I had to decide what I was going to be in. I had to make my choice. I couldn't be in every industry. I couldn't be an accountant, do tax accounting, income tax accounting, corporate income tax accounting, corporate accounting, financial investment advisory, stockbroker, and do payroll. I can't do them all. I had to choose. I had to shift from being a generalist to being much more of a specialist, so I can take care of my clients in the area that I chose to take care of them in. And that's what we do. We shifted to that.
Yeah. That is really powerful. We were just talking about that, and probably will continue to talk about that, about our clientele. And obviously this show is all for entrepreneurs of all different levels, of those that are just starting out to those that have been in the business for a while. And I keep hearing it over and over. And we suggest to our clients to be specialized, to niche, because you know what the pains of the clients you have, what they're going through, you know how to solve it, because that's what you're dealing with. And you kind of blew my mind for a second that there's 5 different updates. I would not have time. I can't even read the newsletters that we write all the way through. You know what I mean? Like, it's like time is so fast. So to be able to get a snapshot of like, what do you need to know and how these things can really have an impact. And sometimes I think we go through our business and we're like, we'll get to it. And you're there keeping people ahead of the game, advising them. How often do you meet with your clients? Do you meet with them quarterly? Is it sometimes monthly, depending on their business, or is it yearly? Like, how often should you really be looking at your payroll situation?
Well, we're talking to our clients weekly. We're sending them information and updates weekly. We have a weekly email and a weekly update that we send out.
Yeah.
And then if they have questions, we're always available. Some of our clients we talk to every payroll.
Wow.
Some we talk to less often. It depends on the circumstances. Some businesses, 6 people in a stable industry, and the boss runs the company. they just run and run and run. And we may not talk to them for several years, but we're advising them of potential things and changes, new things. 45S, which came out a couple of years ago and has been extended, where if you give people time off for what are the equivalent reasons for Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, you can get a tax credit. So you can pay somebody, they stay home to take care of a sick child and you pay them.
Yeah.
You can get up to 25% of that, what you paid them, as a tax credit.
Wow. Yeah, it's
That's
just knowing.
free money again. So these are the kind of things we're talking to our clients all the time and keeping them up to speed, because change, the quicksand under our feet from the IRS shifts all the time.
I can't even imagine over the 30 years, of you being in this business, how often things have changed and they go one way, back to the other, back this way, forward, backwards, all over. I can't even imagine.
When we started, we were making deposits at the bank for tax deposits. Okay.
Yeah.
If you do that today, you get fined.
Oof. Yeah.
Okay. You can't do it. If you send a check to the IRS for that tax deposit instead of making it electronically, there's a 10% penalty.
Right.
But that's what that's the way they were all made before.
Right. You just got to be able to know the rules, being able to know and keeping yourself clean and clear. And I know in that space, it's really to be spit spot as much as you can. And it sounds like you guys are doing a really great job of keeping everybody on track. And obviously I would love to, I can't believe we've already, gone through 30 minutes because you're just packed full with so much information. I highly suggest everybody listening today, go get the payroll book. Get that so you have it. And if you have any questions about anything tax or audits or payroll, get connected to Charles. But as we wrap up, I always like to ask the question, our show is all about shifting and keeping on the move. 30 years in the business, you've worked with your wife, you've done amazing things for clients. What keeps you moving?
I like what I do. I like helping people. I'm a problem solver by nature. Look, I took on a wife and 5 kids. Okay. I solve problems. Her parents told her to find a cop on the street and give them the kids. So I solve that. That's what I do for a living. I solve problems. I enjoy it. It gives me great joy to fix things, to make them right. And I've had to learn as I got older to pick and choose the problems I solve. I haven't taken on another wife and 5 kids, believe me.
Right.
But so it is fun for me. I get great enjoyment out of solving problems and forestalling them and making sure they don't happen. On top of that, keeping people on the straight and narrow so problems don't occur. That's another way of solving problems is,
right.
You get there in advance and you fix it so it doesn't happen. So that's all fun to me. So I've enjoyed the experience. I still enjoy it. I'm 71 years old, but I come into work every day and I get a kick out of it. So, my staff wants to know when I retire, and I go, well, one of these days you're going to find me dead at my desk, and that's when I retire.
Keep going strong all the way. I love that. There's something special about being an entrepreneur and really choosing something you love to do. And for those that have taken that leap of faith to go and fight the good fight and have their own business. And I know you're working with a lot of entrepreneurs, but it's just great to hear others that love what they do. I know I love what I do. It's a lot of hard work. And there's times where like, but you still, when you at your core, you love what you do. It's so powerful. So it's exciting to hear you share that after 30 years of being in the business.
My pleasure.
So I'd love to wrap up this show with how to get in touch with you. Obviously, I shared to get your book, to go, but how do those that really do want to, make sure they're taken care of, make sure they're updated and have everything they need for their business, where do they go?
Well, right here, Get Payroll. Let's point at one. GetPayroll.com. Okay. You can find us there. I'm available at CJR, Charles J. Reed, at GetPayroll.com is my email. And, if they've got an answer they got to have right now, 972-353-0000. press 1 for payroll. And if my customer service reps there can't solve it for you, ask for Charles.
Awesome.
That's me. And I'll answer the phone. I always do, which is something a lot of our competitors won't do. If I'm the chief executive officer, I'm the president, I'm the founder. If you call the president of ADP or Paychex, you're not going to get through.
Right.
And they're not a CPA either.
You're going to get them taken care of. Well, I love that. Thank you for obviously taking the time today to share. For those that are listening, I mean, there's so many nuggets in this. Get the payroll book. Make sure you are taken care of. Charles, you're amazing. Thank you for all the good work you're doing and all the amazing companies that are being taken care of every day. And for all those listening, we're going to get out of here. Thanks again and keep on the move.
My pleasure, Amanda. Thank you.